the customer is no longer just looking at a standardized transaction.
For us, AI is defined not as artificial intelligence. AI is defined as automating all the intel that we have.
There had been scenarios where people are dead and on their name, someone has tried to basically book a policy.
How relevant are CTOs or CIOs now?
Because earlier, we used to be happy with like a 2-day speed. Now you're getting things much faster.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've had almost 2 days of so much of brainstorming already on banks, mutual funds, insurance, NBFCs, everything. But I think we've come to the most exciting part now, technology in financial services. So listen in carefully. It's going to be a very, very exciting session. So welcome all of you. You know, we've had so many generations, baby boomers to millennials, and now we heard it's the blinket generation. So for the blinket generation, what is it that all of you are looking at as, the roadmap ahead in financial services? What is it that the blinket generation actually is looking for? So can we begin with you, Girish from Amazon Pay?
Hello. Hey, first of all, thanks for having me here. At least at Amazon, we don't look at competition at all, right? But I think the customer is very important. So the blinket generation, I actually mapped that to 2 parts. One is, the young generation who are super hungry, who will kind of out-execute everybody else and then create disruption. I mean, that's what the blinket, at least the value proposition stands. And then there is customers who are ever more demanding than earlier, because earlier we used to be, happy with like a 2-day speed. Now you're getting things much faster, right? So I think the customers now are more and more demanding, yeah? So when you look at like the landscape, how it is evolving, the building blocks can be disruptive. For example, it's blockchain or UPI. Fundamentally, the building blocks are changing, and that's a very important part where the disruption happens. And when that disruption happens and the network gets created, you also have customer expectations change rapidly, right? Like, so that the blinket generation kind of maps to how the customer experiences are evolving, because this building blocks fundamentally has changed the game for you. And if applications of that building block manifest as, new solutions or application for customers, which cater to a new set of unmet expectations, which was probably not there earlier, right? And if you, beyond that, like, this also has to kind of function within all the regulatory guardrails and all the compliance requirements we are having, right? So I think from a company perspective, I think it's very important to kind of embrace these trends and then plan ahead in terms of how are we going to kind of solve these customer requirements. And at Amazon, we always work customer backward and not capability backward. So while the trends are there, right, I think it's very important to kind of understand the customer needs, go deep into it, solve the problems, and then I think the results will speak for yourself. So I think that's how at least we have operated. And of course, the trends are new, but I think the solution or how we approach the problem and the market, I think that doesn't change.
I'll go to Ashish next. Ashish, you just came out with a very interesting report from the Everest Group. So, you told us about some of the key findings, and customer focus is one of the findings that you said is the most important that tech can bring about. Another is investment in technology, security, and compliance, and another thing that you mentioned is the talent part, the top tech talent, that is a big challenge. So can you tell us, and all our panelists, how the road ahead will be easier and much smoother if we deal with technology better. And from your findings from the survey that you've done on so many CXOs, what is it that one should do really?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big question to address. But let me maybe 30 seconds spend on your previous question on the blinket generation, right? So, and as we see it, they require speed, convenience, completeness of transaction, and continuous kind of support. So, right. So how does the whole ecosystem then kind of get together to offer that? And there are different pieces of the ecosystem, and then that's enabled by tech. So I think what just Girish mentioned, I thought let me just think through the framework that we have just to put that in perspective. But in terms of the question around the tech roadmap, we did talk about the ABCDE framework, and it does have all the tech jargons. But I think really it's about thinking from how is the customer preference evolving today, right? And what we are seeing is that the customer is no longer just looking at a standardized transaction. They are looking at being able to access finance and payments and lending and all kind of financial products in any platform that they are engaging with, whether it's a social media platform or an e-commerce platform, or it's a ride-hailing app or anything, right? They want to make sure that they're able to quickly access that, and therefore the APIs, microservices, cloud, all the technologies are able to enable that, right? So I think the ecosystem play becomes again very important when it comes to the future of tech. In terms of the technology per se, I mean, we've been at it with cloud for now 6-7 years. Still, there's a long tail of banks that is still has adopted only probably half of their workloads. That is also non-core workloads to cloud. We still have a fair bit of workloads yet to be moved. Of course, there is the core that is still yet to be modernized, and there are motions there. There is a whole set of data engineering problem, the basic plumbing of data to make sure that the data is ready for AI and then Gen AI use cases. There are security and regulatory developments that happen, and one needs to address that. So I think it's a much more broader question, but I think some of these key elements one definitely needs to look into.
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I'll come back to you in a bit. Shrikant of Angel One. So for wealth management, what are the things that you're looking at from tech perspective? What does the road ahead look like for the blinket generation?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on the panel. Look, I think from a wealth management is a very highly personalized services, because you're dealing with one of the most sensitive ingredients, which is money. So one will do well to sort of recognize the fact that it's a very high emotional quotient transaction, and nobody likes to part away with money without having established trust and credibility. And actually, one of the points that Ashish made, I 100% concur. The completeness of transaction, what he mentioned, and the way I look at it is slightly different. I would use the same analogy, but to say that this is also how we've started redefining trust. Let's say 20 years ago when I started my career, trust was defined by conduct, trust was defined by the brand, trust was defined by governance. Today, trust means all of that, but also trust means that if you push a button, the transaction should go through end to end. If you do a purchase transaction, if you do a redemption transaction, it should not get stuck in the middle. So if you jump into an app and you don't get a completeness of transaction, the blinket generation, as you call, or the Gen Zs or the Gen Alpha, they're not going to wait too much, and they're going to be jumpy, they're agile, they want the transaction. So technology is also to ensure that you're able to fulfill transactions at real time in a fast manner, but also you're able to complete an end-to-end transaction. Apart from that, in a traditional industry like wealth management, technology can do a lot in terms of bringing in efficiency. A lot of services like client servicing, And prime example being Amazon. I think it's part of folklore that all of us being Amazon users, very few of us, very few times do we ever feel the need to call a customer service agent, right? Because the backend works so smoothly. So I think customer service is ripe for an automated journey. Operations is ripe for an automated journey. The entire onboarding of a customer, the entire consolidated view, and we were just chatting while walking here. Today with digital public infrastructure like account aggregation, availability of the entire data layer in a single place is as easy as a click of a button authenticated by a consent of a customer by OTP. So having a consolidated view all in one place. Portfolio analytics. Someone asked me a question, what do you mean by AI in wealth management? I think before we rush to unleash AI to customer, I think the first leg is, for us, AI is defined not as artificial intelligence. AI is defined as automating all the intel that we have. So we intend to use all the AI ML tools that we have, but firstly to automate all the intel that a combined team of, let's say, 100 years plus experience have, and to see what kind of market cycles have seen what kind of behaviors. So multiple roles technology can play, and what has been started by great fintech companies by way of financial inclusion, I think many of us can use it responsibly by now taking it to a wider audience as India grows from a 2,300, 2,400 per capita GDP onwards and upwards towards 5,000 and 7,000. So I think without embracing technology, either deeper or wider penetration of services like this is almost impossible.
Saurabh, from wealth management to insurance, Policy Bazaar, what is Policy Bazaar doing to make things better using technology, whether it's AI, Gen AI, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, before I start, I was just wondering, I wish something like account aggregator did exist in insurance. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, there are various products, there are various providers, and it's been a traditional journey which is being converted into a modern digital landscape. It has taken a time. I think we have spent almost 15 years to at least automate certain processes where people can come and buy and have the insurance digitally available on an online platform. It has not been a smooth ride. It took a lot of effort to work very closely with the suppliers to automate certain stuff. What we are looking forward is largely we want to make sure that while someone who has purchased from an insurance product should be able to get a seamless service also. That's a very, very important aspect of our thought process. We have almost invested 3 hours in that journey, and we believe we have to still invest another 10 years to make the entire experience seamless. And if I just want to take some examples around Gen AI and how we are actually trying to solve these things, let's say when you're looking to buy motor insurance, one of the ways when your policy has expired, you have to go through a process of inspection. And traditional way of buying has been where some surveyor used to come and inspect your car, and after inspection he used to share the report. This entire process used to take the 2 days, 3 days effort. What we have been able to do, you take the video and send the video back to our system. Our system will run the entire AI over it and see where are the problems. It will revert back to the customer saying that these areas you have to recapture to ensure that your policy can be generated. So the work which used to take 2 to 3 days now can actually help customer and having a policy within a couple of hours. And how can we actually further streamline and bring down that? That's the goal that we are looking at. There are other examples. It's a very involved category because you're making a promise to someone. You're giving a piece of paper when you're issuing a policy. There's a lot of fraud which happens in the entire segment. So there's a lot of effort which we have put in using AI to automate the process of anomaly detection, where we flag cases which can potentially be having issues. There had been scenarios where people are dead and on their name someone has tried to basically book a policy. So those things can only be done using the AI and Gen AI piece, largely AI I would say, because at a scale where we are operating, we can't run it through rules. It has to be AI automated, and we have used that to capture certain cases which have been flagged to the suppliers and partner ecosystem, and we eventually have been able to bring down our risk ratios and loss ratios. So there have been plenty of examples. We'll talk as we move forward on this line. Yeah.
In an earlier session, we were talking on the relevance of CTOs or CIOs, or the tech team basically. So my question to all of you would be, how relevant are CTOs or CIOs now, and have things changed? I know, Girish, you are not a CTO, but even then, you are looking at the business side, and you know how has the role of a CTO or a CIO changed in an organization? Has the corner room dynamics kind of, taken a change?
Yeah. See, I think whoever runs a company and like takes responsibility, right, like to kind of solve the customer problems ultimately and show business results. I think what is most important or most close to them would be the various levers they will have to influence the customer behavior as well as show business results, right? So I think the question in terms of how important a CTO or CIO is like mapping directly to that. So as you embrace technology more and more, right? I think the dependency on technology to kind of run large businesses just like goes up significantly. And with all these different stacks coming up, new technologies, Gen AI, all of that stuff coming up, right? I think we are getting in an era where there's a lot of interconnectedness and dependencies on systems, on concepts. So I think somebody who understands all of that interconnectedness, right, and especially in a more complex and regulatorily challenging environments, I think the role of the leader, if I may call, who understands technology really well, I think it's like probably the most important role, right, in organizations. Because without technology, right, like it's very difficult to survive. Because earlier there could be some companies which are very technology focused. But now I think the ecosystem or the network or the government or the country, like that itself is moving to a system where, right, technology is running it. We don't have, businesses which are completely on paper anymore, right? The government itself is like a big enabler of technology, enabler of platforms on which things are built. So I actually feel that like the role of a CTO, CIO, whatever you want to call, right, the technology leader, and I think the leader, the CEO has to kind of be very close to them, right? Like more than any other time in the history of businesses, right? Like, so I think that's where we have evolved to.
Ashish, from your various surveys that you've done, what is it that you found out from the CXOs themselves? Are they looking at the tech team, the leader of the tech team differently now? Are boardrooms different?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is also very contextual to what business you are in, and also what stage of business you are in. So, but then we've all heard the statements, right? That we are so they are business companies, and now they're saying that they're in the business of tech, right? So therefore that itself highlights the importance of technology. And if the business is tech, then if you're a policy bazaar and you are doing modeling and credit writing and underwriting and other the banks are doing that. So are banks or are they the tech companies with the large acquisition service other parts of business? So I think that's the but I think the heart of the question is that tech, of course, is critical for any strategy today. We talk of business model reinvention or innovation, and a lot of that is again driven by tech. While we do look at how the customer is evolving and changing, but I think the advancements in technology has made things possible that were not even imagined by the customer. So do customers even know what they want? But when they see or when they experience something that is enabled by tech, then they all want it. So I think to that extent, yes. Now, of course, between CIO and CTO, there are two different roles depending on the organization. Some places they can blend together. CIOs may be more of running the business with incremental improvements, whereas CTOs would be looking at more the technology stack, more disruptive building platforms and so on and so forth. So there are some of those nuances which would differ from org to org, but yes, technology absolutely, it's a boardroom conversation. In fact, last 1 year or so, and I think we were at the lunch and we were talking about that 2-3 years back it was all about ESG and now it's all about Gen AI, and that's a question directly being asked to the CIO or the CTO org.
Shrikant, any example from your own company how the company has changed in terms of the perspective on tech team actually?
So yeah, I was hoping you asked that question because I think, look at how the landscape has changed. There are companies who are born as a tech-first company, and then there are companies who are successfully trying to transition to be able to use technology in a progressive manner. The tech-first company, the answer calls itself out. It is a tech-first company, and hence tech is always in the epicenter of everything they do. But the magic is happening also when a lot of established incumbent companies are now trying to embrace technology, come from behind, leave their legacy systems behind, and are actually looking at making that leapfrogged approach. Most of the incumbent companies rather, are now realizing that a vendorized approach in all cases may not be the right approach. So I think there are a lot of boardroom conversations which, for example, since you asked for a specific example, we have this whole philosophy that whatever we define is core to our customer journey will be owned by us, which means that tech will be written by us, the code will be owned by us, so that in case there is a problem, in case there is a breakdown of journey, we don't have to go looking out for the vendor. You take about a week to diagnose the problem, and then somebody, by the time the loop comes back, it's already taken 7, 8, 10 days, and there is a trust deficit. So anything that you define is core and at the heart of your customer journey, you have to self-own. And what is the meaning of self-own? It means that you have to have a considerable workforce of yours, which is an engineering workforce. So that is trend A. So clear trend that I'm seeing in Indian corporate boardrooms with established incumbent companies is the nature and the color of the workforce changing from non-tech with a skew towards tech team. Of course, there are progressive discussions and there are very public domain discussions of should you have a lean tech team where you can sort of have an overlay of technologies like Gen AI, or should you have a larger tech team? But I think that's a matter of a very unique behavioral aspect of each business. The second trend is of cybersecurity. Now look, I don't know about each one of you, but for me, one of the biggest worries is when I wake up is not to find my account being whisked away. I think today we are living in an era where if technology has given us 10 convenience features, it has also given you 10 different hack mechanisms of various degrees of risk. And as somebody called me out when I had blogged a few days back, that risks also existed pre-technology. That's not the point. The point is those risks were well known and mitigants were well identified. These kind of risks we don't know. I'm sure so many of us would have received a WhatsApp message from someone in our contact book asking for money. And then we realized that it was a WhatsApp which was hacked. Now, how long before not only are we getting a WhatsApp from a known, but the AI has also made sure that the tonality of the WhatsApp is such that you will have very little to doubt about it. And if I'm stuck in a panel discussion, and so my wife sends me a text saying that I'm stuck, and if it's a small amount of 4,000, 5,000 rupees, I may not even think and I'll just send the money out. So the nature of risk is changing, whether it's a DOS attack, whether it's a hack, whether it's somebody just taking data away. So cybersecurity is the other big trend which I'm seeing as having a very large share of most of the discussions in the boardroom. So those are some of the examples.
Right, right. So Saurabh, is it easier for the tech team to convince the tech head to convince the CEO now to invest wherever he's asking for? Has the convincing become easier?
Most certainly, I think. I've been lucky. I just want to quote something which happens in my organization, and that makes me a lot easy in dealing with tech initiatives that I do. My boss, my CEO, takes full interest on what is happening in technology. He, in fact, goes to the level of what API you're going to expose to certain extent. So imagine, and it has really changed with the advent of AI, ML, etc. Because a lot of problems which you can't solve at scale with offline in an offline manner, you have to anyway get involved and understand how your business issues can be resolved using AI, ML. So with the technology, as the technology is evolving, and as our management team has started taking a lot of interest in how technology can help them in doing the businesses, and as the businesses are being pivoted around technology, it is becoming easier. If you go to and talk to any person, any investor, and tell them that this is the business that you are looking at, and this is your core team, and these are the people who are actually they are good experts in building a stack from scratch, and they have ability to understand the latest technology. I think there is a possibility where you will get attention and you will get time from them. It has certainly changed, and last 5 years have been amazing for such kind of investment trends. I'm sure a lot of us have been investing in various technologies, so they are the best people to answer that as well. Yeah.
That's quite heartening. So I'll talk a bit about the regulatory piece, the governance. So Girish, how has the regulatory space changed with the evolution of new technology and the fast pace of technology, the changing technology, and how does a company cope with it?
Yeah, I think first of all, I feel like regulation and compliance is very important for businesses, because at the heart of it is to, at least in the payments space, to protect the customer, right, from the data getting leaked, from the customer, not having to kind of, go through pains in terms of bank account being hacked or losing money. That's all bad things, right? So I actually feel compliance is the core of the business running and like serving the customers well. And in India, especially, I feel like the regulator has done a fabulous job in terms of understanding the key challenges and then enforcing them as well, right? And then helping the entire ecosystem to kind of mature to a totally different level of servicing. So I think that's great. Now the question is, as these regulations keep coming in, right? How do you prepare yourself to kind of rapidly evolve and be compliant? So I think there are two viewpoints we can take over there. One is to say, am I compliant or not? Second is, hey, you know what? This is actually good for business. Hence, doing this is actually going to help our customers. And then how do we take that offering, not just from a compliance standpoint, but as a good for customer feature, and then see if that has got implications in terms of fostering your business. And then when we started this journey, especially at Amazon Pay, we have PPI license, right? We do UPI, we do gift cards. So there are multiple areas where we deal with regulatory compliance and then the evolving landscape. I think initially, of course, like everyone, we also had a kind of a learning curve in terms of how to kind of do this. But I think over a period of time, one of the things we have done, I feel really well, is to take it really seriously. And then at the heart of everything we do is the trust to the customer, trust to the merchant, trust to the partners. So right now, I feel like from a culture perspective, right, that information about, hey, these regulations and compliance is really important. And we need to think through these upfront when we design the systems, right? And we have also kind of re-engineered and reorchestrated our systems to suit the regulatory compliance. Data localization is a great example, right? We had to localize a lot of our systems when that regulation came, but I think it was quite thought through. So now I think with more and more regulations coming in, I think the base foundation is set. And I think the people have the culture of thinking about compliance upfront before we jumpstart a new initiative. So I think that culture is set, and I actually feel that it is actually working really well, even though the upfront investment and the learning process, a lot of people felt it was quite sudden, and then it had its ramp time. But I think once it is set, if you think through that really well and orchestrate your systems and also percolate the learning and tell people that this is very serious and the entire organization culture changes, I think overall I'm actually seeing this as a very positive trend.
Just to take it a bit forward, Ashish, do you think compliance has a very huge cost and it's also stifling innovation that is required?
Yeah, no, a very interesting question. So I think from a cost and investment perspective, yes, I think, and in fact, in the research that we just did on behalf of Business Standard, that was a very clear answer that the respondents said that almost 50% of respondents said that they are having disproportionate more investments going into compliance and security kind of investments around tech. So that's for sure. I think the question around innovation, yes, I think that there's always a challenge, right? I mean, both needs investment, right? But compliance and security is something which is critical for the business right now. It can get you into trouble. But then innovation is also important to compete in the marketplace, to build new products or services, and to kind of differentiate yourself. So I think that's a balancing act. However, from all the respondents, we did gather that a majority of them did not feel that the compliance is actually holding them back in a major way, because I think that the industry is right now trying to understand the intent behind those compliances. And as Girish, you mentioned, that it's important for our industry to sustain. If we do not have some of those policies and those compliances in place, then it could significantly impact or detrimental to our industry. So I think to that extent, it's good to know that the companies are taking it in a positive stride, I would say. Yeah, but yes, of course, a lot of investments are going into it.
Shrikant, your thought on this, the regulatory and the compliance piece. What is it like? Is it a burden? And have we innovated enough?
So look, I've been in a heavily regulated industry for 23 years. So we learned to live with the way regulations are defined and the boundaries are there. But I think, as Ashish rightly mentioned, if you look at most of the regulations have a single point agenda, which is consumer protection and investor protection in our case. So I think as long as everyone embraces to the fact that these are being done not to stifle innovation, but to ensure that there is no mis-selling, the investors are well protected, information arbitrage is minimized, I think it will do well for all of us to play within those regulations set. Now, we speak of innovation. I think while most of the credit goes to early fintech companies for financial inclusion, but in some sense, the entire thing was also paved by much more progressive regulations and the work that the government did in terms of innovating technology. India's DPI, the entire public infrastructure, in my mind is second to none. So many people who come to India are just amazed by what a UPI can do, and now India is actually exporting the UPI technology to many more countries. We just saw the magic of Aadhaar. We call Aadhaar India's social security number. Even in parts of West, social security number can't do so many more things as what we can do with a 140 crore population and trying to get almost all Indians connected through a single document. We are now seeing what the power of it can do with the new technology called account aggregation, which is going to squarely put the onus of data to who it rightfully belongs, which is the customer. So otherwise, everybody believes that they own the data, but the regulation's heart says that the data belongs to no one but to the end consumer. So unless and until the end consumer shows value in what you can do with his or her data, he won't give you consent. So which means in one stroke, you are going to make primary and third-party data very fungible. And now incumbents who have been sitting on the same data for 20 years will have to ensure that it is not just enough for you to be sitting on data. You need to massage that data for the betterment of that customer. So I think there are multiple such examples which has paved the way for a very innovative culture. We know that most of the regulators have a sandbox in which a lot of new technologies are coming, but it's a tightrope walk. They're also well aware of the fact that everybody is 2 steps ahead to also try to exploit it in the wrong sense. So sometimes a tonality of a regulation can feel a little pinching, but if one understands it well and understands that it's uniformly applied to all, I think it's a much easier playground to accept it.
Saurabh, is the financial sector especially related to tech? Is it very heavily regulated and should it be eased?
No, I think we all are running our services for the customers largely. And what is needed for the customer is something which we ought to do. And we realize we are a kind of a scaled up business right now. And if we just want to basically not follow the compliance, not stick to the rules which have been set by the regulator, I think it would only create harms for the end consumer. So we do feel whatever is happening in the sector, especially in our insurance sector, the kind of regulations which are coming, it is actually helping the customers. And wherever we feel there is a bit of improvement that is needed, we can come and we can go and discuss. But generally so far, whatever has been done, that has been done in the interest of consumers. And especially, I will just name what Ashish was saying for security. I think this is one piece which is causing a lot of heartburn among a lot of CXOs and CIOs, because no matter how hard you try, you got to be just wrong once. If you are wrong once, you are just out of the game. And that's where guardrails, compliance, which have been kind of a standard, if you follow them very religiously, they certainly help you. And we did that for a couple of years so far, and we felt that it has only improved our ecosystem, and we have actually become stronger over a period of time with respect to compliance and security. So I do feel whatever is happening, whatever is coming from the regulator is coming for good so far.
So whatever is happening from the regulatory side is for the consumer good. On that note, we can take a couple of questions from the audience. Is there any question for this panel? Yeah, I can see someone there. Yeah, gentleman over there.
Hello, I am Gajendra Singh.
Brief question, please.
Yeah, I am Gajendra Singh. My question is that to all the panelists, that what are the top 2 use cases you are trying to apply as far as the artificial intelligence and machine learning is concerned in your organization? Because we heard a lot about it, but if you can practically tell directly from your mouth, we will be able to know that actually corporates are using it.
Shall I take?
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think I do remember 5-6 years ago, there were 2 technologies that we used to talk about among technical setups: blockchain and AI ML. And lot of times people used to talk about them in a very fancy way. But what has changed in last 3, 4, 5 years, that it has become the part, AI ML has become the core of every technology company. I'm sure, those who are sitting here, they would have been using in some form or another. And recent advent of Gen AI has kind of basically changed the game. So I would just give you some cases that you are talking about. I think there are 3 larger areas where we use machine learning and AI for us. One is enhancing the user experience, which is largely through chatbots and chat. If you want to be very clear in understanding the intent of a person while he's having a conversation, and straight away taking him to the place where he can get the support without involving a human being, that's one area. And second is working on the productivity, efficiency part of it, where we use, we have a large contact center, so we have a lot of conversations that we do with the customers, and people generally take 3 to 4 months to buy a product. These conversations have to be transcribed, and they have to be put in a compressed format, in a summary format for the next conversation. So this summarization has come up very good recently to help the conversations to become a lot easier and swifter. And that's really adds up to the efficiency part. And third part, which I just briefly talked about in the beginning, is fraud detection and risk management. This at a scale where we operate is impossible to be done through rules or data mining. It has to be run through a machine learning intelligent system where anomalies can be detected very fast. Having said all this, these technologies are good, but still we believe you always need to keep human in the loop to do this stuff, because you can't be just completely dependent on technologies to take over. But most of the cases get handled very swiftly. The cases which don't get handled swiftly, you have to bring the human in the loop immediately. That's what.
Does anyone else want to speak about any use cases?
Yeah, I think I can chat about a couple of them that come to mind. So at least Amazon Pay, we're trying to use Gen AI, and we always used ML and AI, right? Like across the board, in terms of personalizing customer experiences, reducing cost to serve, because payments are typically like high scale, low margin. So I think cost to serve is a very important aspect to optimize. And of course, the cybersecurity, I think we've talked about the risks, right? So if you look at personalized experiences, both on shopping as well as on payments, so on the shopping, like on detailed pages of Amazon, you get the personalized assistants, right, which help you understand the context and helps you make the purchase decision. On the payment experience side, we recommend the right payment instruments based on your previous usage, your need for an installment, right? Like so, and even like we always use AI and ML, and now we are using Gen AI to kind of give you a credit score, give you a pay later line, right? Like so, all of those are experiences which we do. On the cost to serve part, I think there is a lot of focus in terms of how to simplify the customer support, right? Like how do we use the data which you have gone through in terms of shopping journey and payment journey, and when you are asking a question, right? How can we resolve that quickly? And that's a win-win-win for the customer, for the internal cost to serve, right? Like as well as the overall experience gets much better. And lastly, on the risk side, right? I think we have models which detect fraudulent transactions, thousands of variables, and as these technologies are evolving, not only are our technologies evolving, but I think the MOs or the modus operandis are also evolving, right? I think so. And trust is kind of the cornerstone for Amazon in terms of dealing with customer, merchants. We want our systems to be very, very high on trust. And that's like the cornerstone of everything we do. So I think that's a big area for us in terms of using all these technologies.
Last question, yeah.
A lot for your insights. How is the technology insight for the last mile reach in the rural pockets? What is that investment you do? One is technology towards financial literacy. Any insights from your organization?
Can you
I said, how is technology advancement for the digital and financial reach in the rural pockets? What is that you are doing?
Rural pockets.
Rural markets.
Rural market. Rural market.
I think, look, there is no bigger leveler than technology, right? Because technology doesn't differentiate whether you're an urban consumer or a rural consumer, whether you're a rich, poor, whether you are from this demographics or that demographic. So I think if each one of us who have been in a D2C sort of a business can make sure that by using technology, we can take our trade, craft, product, services now to a wider base in India. As I said, it's very difficult in today's cost to serve economics to go without technology. So I think one of the best ways in which we can all participate in this growing financial inclusion is to use technology and take products, services, and goods, which have otherwise been relegated to only, let's say, the top cities, to the lengths and breadths of India. So it's a very simple answer to that question. And two, I think it's now well known that the smartphone penetration in India is second to none, which also means that most of the population in India across, beyond the top 20, top 30 cities are very comfortable in using smartphones, smart technologies. And hence, the marriage of the both points will mean that you will be able to cater to some of these consumers in a much more sharper and a much more productive way. So I think that's the way at least we are positioning.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for a very good panel discussion. Thanks a lot, everyone.